Well, good evening and welcome to the first McGann Playground Community Meeting. My name is Lauren Bryant and I'm the project manager for this project for Boston Parks. Before we jump into the presentation, I just want to go over a few how-tos and what to expect. Interpretation was not requested for this meeting, so tonight's meeting will be held in English. However, for any future meetings, please know that we're eager to hear all voices and are able to offer translation and interpretation as requested free of charge for additional languages. So if that's an interest for anyone in the future meetings, just please email me at lauren.bryant@boston.gov. Next slide, please. We want to just make sure that everybody knows that the meeting is being recorded and will be available on the project website within about a week. It's a good reminder to let people know that we have a project website. It is www.boston.gov/departments/parks-and-improvements-McGann-playground. And I'll put that in the chat for people who are in the meeting. Next slide, please. We also want to note that during the presentation portion, we're going to ask people to keep themselves muted when they aren't speaking. It just makes it easier for everyone to hear. And because it's being recorded, we completely understand if you want to keep your video off. However, if you are comfortable keeping it on, it's always wonderful to be able to see people's reactions to what we share. We want to ensure that the conversation feels accessible to everyone and that each of you feels comfortable sharing your questions and comments. If you don't feel comfortable in this setting, please feel free to add a comment in the chat or to email me at lauren.bryant@boston.gov. Next slide, please. Just a couple of Zoom tips for anyone. We want to hear your thoughts, and that's why we're here tonight. There are several ways you can engage with us. We'll be sharing a short presentation, getting your feedback, and we'll have open discussion at the end of the presentation. Question pops up in your head during the meeting, feel free to add it into the chat and we can get to it during the discussion portion. Next slide, please. We can go ahead and skip this one for now. So now onto the project. Want to thank you for joining tonight. And again, if you know any friends or neighbors who weren't able to join us, please share with them that this presentation will be recorded and posted on the website for anyone who was not able to make it tonight. We're going to introduce the team, do a quick project overview, talk about the project schedule and funding, and then we'll do a quick presentation and do a listening session to gather community feedback. And then we'll talk about next steps. Next slide, please. So my name is Lauren Bryant, for anybody who may have joined a little bit late. I'm the project manager for the McGann project. We also tonight from Boston Parks have Liz Sullivan with us. Christine Brandeo, who is our community outreach coordinator, couldn't be with us tonight, but she's a really great resource for anyone who wants to talk about any park-related issues outside of the design and construction process. And she's also a really good contact for somebody for friends groups. Our design team for this project is G2 Collaborative, and we're really excited to have them on board for this project. I'm going to do a quick introduction to each of you. Maybe you could each raise your hand and do a little wave when I say your name, and then introduce yourselves as the presentation goes. We have Gigi Saltonstall, Lisa Gearbach, Patricia Noto, and Wenlin Yang. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about McGann Playground tonight, and the design team will go into more detail about the site as we get into the presentation. Next slide, please. So this is where we're at with the project schedule. Today is July 15th. It's our first community meeting. On Monday, we're going to do a pop-up on the site from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So again, if you know anybody or if you want to join us as well for an in-person discussion at the park, that would be great to see people on Monday. We typically have 3 community meetings for our process. The first one tonight, we're going to go into an analysis of the park, what we've seen, what we've noticed out there, but really it's about listening to the community and to hear what you guys would like to see in the future of your park. The second meeting that we'll have early fall is going to be coming back after we've listened to all that feedback and sharing several design concepts for what the park could become and taking your feedback from that. And then at our third meeting that we'll have later this fall, we'll share a final design for the playground and make sure we got it right. Did we hear you guys? Did we hear what you guys were telling us during the rest of the process? This fall and winter, we'll finalize construction drawings and put it out to bid. And the current plan is to start construction in the spring for a $685,000 renovation to the playground and hopefully reopen the park for use in fall of 2022. We're also wanting to just point out sort of how park design happens, just so that people understand. There are a lot of things that go into park design. Everything from City of Boston priorities to Parks and Recreation goals. There's safety guidelines, regulatory guidelines such as ADA. There are also obviously community input, which is a big part of the process and is why we're here tonight. Next slide, please. So City of Boston priorities we look at during the planning process, and we prioritize expanding park access, addressing equity and climate resiliency, promoting public health, and also building strong communities. Next slide, please. We also prioritize park-specific goals, which can overlap with city priorities and include the creation of parks which are accessible and available to all, providing diverse and balanced programming, promoting meaningful and inclusive community engagement like tonight, and creating adaptive and resilient landscapes. Along with the goals and your voice and your input, that will help us to design the future of this space. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Patricia.
Hi everyone, I'm Patricia. I'm a landscape designer at G2 Collaborative, and our design team has been starting by doing some site analysis, by visiting the site, and we started by looking at more of a sort of zoomed out neighborhood look at, what is within a half-mile radius and just outside of it. And so we've marked here on this map, in purple, you'll see schools and daycares nearby, and parks are marked in red. And then other playgrounds that have playground equipment are outlined in red. And so our main takeaway from this was that within a half-mile radius, there are some great open spaces, more focusing on sort of recreational, passive recreation. So at Stony Brook Park and Sharon Woods, there are walking trails, and then more kind of active recreation at the George Wright Golf Course, which actually butts up right to our site. And then there aren't actually any other playgrounds within this half-mile radius, like a 10 to 15-minute walk of our site. There are some just outside. So there's the Ross Playground and this BCYF Playground just outside of this half-mile radius, and also the Smith Pond Fields, which have larger recreational fields. And so zooming into our site a little bit, we're really located between the golf course and this residential neighborhood. And the playground is really kind of pushed up towards West Street, while the open lawn is more towards the back of the site, coming up to the golf course. And so we looked at just what are existing conditions on site. And we found that the site is really kind of ringed by a wall and fence, as well as vegetation. So there are some larger trees on West Street, and then the other three sides of the site are really kind of enclosed by larger trees. And the two main entrances are both off of West Street. We're looking at them here. And so these two gates actually open just directly into the play equipment. In addition, we've marked in kind of a tan color here, the playground equipment, and then in purple is our seating. So So part of our analysis was to look at, where is the active play happening, where is more passive play happening, and it's quite obvious. It's all of the active play is really at the front of the site, just inside of the entrance at West Street. The back of the site and the kind of edges almost feel a little bit inaccessible, especially that back corner in the summertime is really overgrown. So that sort of feels like it's not really even a part of the usable space. And then the open lawn in the middle is more of our passive play. There are 2 post and platform structures on site that are kind of catered towards different age groups, as well as the very popular water feature, which we saw people using when we visited, which was awesome to see. And then there are 2 swing sets on site, also catering to different ages. The park, as it is now, was designed in 1992, and there have been some upgrades since then. And you'll see in this photo on the left side that they've added some accessibility additions to kind of to bring this structure up to the level so that folks can use it. There are 4 benches on site, and they're all facing in towards the play equipment with their back to West Street, as well as this one picnic table. And then the site on the neighborhood side, there's this stone wall with a chain link fence. Opposite that, there is a chain link fence on the sort of wooded side of the golf course. And then at the back of the site, again, another chain link fence that separates the site from the golf course that you can actually see through in the winter, but in the summer becomes quite overgrown and is sort of a wall of trees. We studied topography as a part of our analysis, and our big takeaway from this was that even though the site feels flat, there's actually a 6-foot difference between the back corner of the site and that sort of northernmost point on West Street. And so this is something we'll take into consideration as we move forward in design and think about things like drainage. And then finally, we looked at sort of sun and shade on the site during different seasons and times of day. And so this was looking at fall and spring, and then this was looking at summer. And our sort of main takeaway from this was that the site's actually quite sunny across the seasons, especially in the morning through midday. And then once we get to later afternoon, around 4 o'clock, you see that the site is actually becoming more shady, especially on the northern side of the site. And so, like Lauren said, we really want to hear from you all today about your thoughts. But as we move forward with the design, we're really thinking about how can we activate and utilize more of the site? How can we make the site more accessible? How can we continue to provide diverse play opportunities for people of all different ages? And we have heard from a couple of folks already that they love the water play. So how can we maintain that going forward? And also look at things like adding more strategic seating. And so we were wanting to move into some questions for you all now.
And we were thinking that if people are interested in speaking and telling us their thoughts and expanding on the answers to these, that would be great. If you're more comfortable putting responses into the chat, we'll be collecting those as data points as well. Patricia, do you want to talk through them?
Yeah, sure. So they kind of start a little bit more straightforward in terms of questions, and then we'll get more into your thoughts on improvements and things you love about the park and things that you'd love to see in the future. So our first question is just, what time of day do you most visit the park?
And on these, if you guys want to just answer in the chat, feel free to just put the letter of the answer, because they're all going to be individual letters as we go through, so we'll be able to track them in the chat. And also feel free at any point to raise your hand or unmute and jump in with questions or comments as well.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one. So we were wondering, who do you normally go to the park with? Is it your own kids? We have talked to some folks that are coming from daycares. Do you meet up with other people there, like friends and family? Do you go by yourself? Or is there something else that we're missing here? When you're visiting the park, typically how many other people are there? And this just goes through the number.
And with this, we're just trying to gauge and get a feel for whether the size of equipment that's there now meets the needs of the users, or whether it feels like the amount of equipment isn't adequate for the users that visit at any one time.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, I think Stephanie, who you said it depends on the time of day. When does it seem busiest?
I live literally right next to the park, and I feel like the park gets a lot of traffic of people coming home from work and stopping with their families and their kids on the way home. So I would say the busiest time for the park is after school, depending on the season. You know, it's like in the 3 o'clock range, and then like that this time of year when it's still really hot. I think it gets really, really busy, like at like the 5 o'clock time.
Right.
That's when I usually notice the most people during the week. And then on the weekends, it gets busy right from the get-go. You know, a good big group of little kids and families come in the morning, and then like kind of after nap time, and it's busy through the day on the weekends on a nice day. You know, so there are times when it is a little bit crowded with the kind of play equipment that's there. And that would be in that like after work time for sure.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
it sounds like for those of you who may have joined after we talked about it, we're also going to do a pop-in at the park on Monday from 4 until 6 p.m. Trying to kind of, you know, hit the time when, like Stephanie was talking about. We were hoping that was it. We picked a good time, it sounds like, to try to talk to families who are there using the park. So that's great to hear that we picked a good time. So if you didn't hear that, please feel free to join us, even though you're here tonight.
So I think we covered this one a little bit, but feel free to put in the chat if you think that the play opportunities there right now are sufficient for the numbers of people using them. Okay, next question is, does the playground accommodate the ages of children in the neighborhood? Again, just a yes or no.
And if you think it doesn't, it would be great to know if you think that the playground needs to accommodate more younger kids, if it needs to accommodate more older kids, or just more of everything. Getting some good feedback there. Patricia, oh, there we go.
Okay, so next question is, what do you love about this park? The current play equipment, the water feature, the open space, so more of that sort of middle passive lawn area, or again, any other things we're missing. We'd love to hear your ideas. Okay. Okay, the next question is, what makes you want to come to this park over others? Is it kind of a convenience factor of it's close to home or work? It's not too crowded. The play equipment's great. There's kind of an easy place to supervise your kids, or other.
Just to know, you also don't, no one has to choose. You can put multiple answers if you want also. We're very relaxed about our multiple choice questions.
I think part of why we want to ask these questions before we get into some of the questions about things that aren't as great in the park is that as we're making design suggestions, we want to make sure that we don't lose the parts of the park that people who use it really enjoy, while we're also trying to make adjustments to some of the things that may not be on the top of your favorites list.
Okay, so speaking of needed, we want to know what most needs improving about the park. So would it be making the play equipment more accessible? Does the play equipment need to get, moved further into the park, maybe away from West Street? Could the open space be better utilized? The play equipment is aging and maybe needs to be updated, or other. And like Gigi said, multiple answers are encouraged as well.
May I speak on this part? Actually,
Absolutely.
I think that the whole park as a whole needs improvement, to be honest. And some of the equipment, I know that it's been updated maybe a couple of decades ago, maybe or so. But it definitely needs some upgrading so that it could assist all ages. Some of the swings are not too friendly currently, not enough as well. And I think that the back there's too much space in the back, and not that green grass is lovely, of course. I want green grass. A lot of people do a lot of birthdays there, but I think it's wasted space. And I think that if we can do a little bit of more or add some more to the space, there would be lovely, especially the water part.
Yes, I mean, right now the open space, the grass just gets used for people to let their dogs go to the bathroom. And that's why my kids don't play there, because people just let their dogs go to the bathroom all over the grass. So it's kind of gross.
Yeah, that's unfortunately something that we see a lot in a lot of parks, and is something that it's definitely a challenge. I wanted to also just address one of the comments in the chat as we're going through. There was a comment about the spongy ground texture and not doing wood chips. Boston Park's standard is to do the poured in place rubber surfacing, which is, I think, what you are referring to there, Kia. And so that is our standard and what we will be proposing here instead of the wood chips. Not to jump in, I just wanted to make sure we responded to that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also visiting other parks with my kids in Boston quite a bit, and in the close neighborhood. I just would love to see with this park more varied playground equipment with, you know, different like climbing and ropes and, you know, different levels of things. And this just is outdated kind of play, you know, in these kind of structures. They're fun and it's great because it's right near our house, but this is a great opportunity for kind of moving into what play looks like at more modern playgrounds. I'd love to see that here, obviously.
I agree with that as well, because we most of the time drive over to the LaGrange Park because they have the, you know, spongy, it's the only thing I can say, that texture ground, and then they have climbing, you know, toys, and, you know, my daughter really takes to climbing. She loves to climb over things, which a lot of kids do. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of our favorites, one of our favorite playgrounds that's in the near close neighborhood is I think it's the Kelly playground. It's a DCR playground. It's the Kelly playground over by the skating rink on Turtle Pond Parkway. And that it just has all sorts of like woodsy features and nature inspirations and that kind of stuff. It just has lots of kind of just different neat things to climb and levels to go, different levels and things and different slides, and it's really, really cool.
Good.
Yeah, it's great. Having some other examples of other parks that you like is wonderful.
And Kia, I'm glad that your daughter likes the one on LaGrange. I worked on that one as well. My kids really like going there too. the red circle dots that are on the surfacing. My son actually, when he was younger, I said, "You're the right age for the kids. We want to jump between these." So I had him come out and jump from space to space, and the contractor put a spray paint dot everywhere he went so that he got to lay out kind of where they all went. That's one of our favorites too as well.
That's cool.
Great. So I think we started to answer this one already, but what would you most like to see in a future park here? So updating the play equipment and the water feature. You know, did the gates need to be addressed? Green space. I think someone wrote in the chat a trike loop, space for older adults, or open to any ideas that come to mind.
And I'd be curious if people are willing to chime in even outside of the chat on this one. Are there people that use the park other than the playground, right? Like, are there older adults that would like a place to sit with game tables? Would exercise equipment be nice for, you know, if parents are there with kids? Are there things besides what's there now that you could see people using or that you'd be interested in using as well? Things maybe we didn't list here.
Other than people playing and like birthday parties and things, I've only ever seen people occasionally sitting at the picnic table, maybe doing some work or homework or schoolwork or work. But I would say the vast majority is the play, and then obviously like I said, the impromptu dog park in the green space.
Okay.
Actually, just to add to what Stephanie was saying, that space in the back. So a few years ago, there was a group of I'm going to say an exercise team. They wanted to set up a group to have it or do some exercise in the back, but they found out that most of them were stepping on poop, and so they had to move to a different location. But it's the same exact people from our community that wanted to do it there because it's convenient. However, they've had to move elsewhere in order for them to execute their exercise, I'll say. But they don't have anything around there for adults to motivate them to exercise or or practice a healthy life, I'll say.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you think if we did do some sort of exercise equipment, you think that would be used?
I believe so, yes. Given, because I was part of that group 2 years ago.
Okay.
Post, this is before the pandemic happened, of course. And we started, and it was October. We started in October. We were practicing in the back. And unfortunately, we were stepping on poop all the time. So we had to move elsewhere.
Right.
Because of it. And then the pandemic happened, and we just couldn't continue after that. But we're still willing to do it, but only if the space changes the way it looks, and of course, more friendly for adults in the community as well.
Okay. That
I
makes,
also believe the same thing about, I think that people would go there and use the exercise equipment if there was adult geared exercise equipment as well. Because I do see
Okay.
that in other communities
mhm.
too.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Mhm.
You know,
So
and I think,
Sorry, go ahead, Stephanie.
oh, I was just gonna say that you were, you know, one of the things that has been mentioned so far was, you know, proposing like moving the play equipment back further away from the street, which is a great safety thing. But I think that if it was less of a setup of like the play and then all that grass behind, that is like a perfect opportunity for dogs and poop and stuff. I think that, you know, that would be, with some equipment and a different setup, I think it could encourage other recreation opportunities for people who are not just little children on the playground. So that would be great.
Agreed.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question just because I've heard birthday parties mentioned a few times. Sometimes in parks where we know that there are gatherings that are larger numbers, like a birthday party, we sometimes look at, you know, like larger community kinds of picnic tables or like multiple seating, in the fact that right now there are the 4 benches and the 1 picnic table. I'm just curious if people feel like that's sufficient, if they feel like additional seating would be better. I'm just thinking kind of about the birthday party comment.
I can comment on that actually, because I've been around birthday parties there.
Okay.
And usually they don't use the picnic table because it's not enough. So
Okay.
what we usually do is we just either rent the tables and the chairs, or we just bring our own if we have
Okay.
table with. Because the picnic table is on the side, we usually just put our table in the middle of the grass of the open space. And of course, that's where we do our gathering.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, since there is space, it would be wonderful to have more tables and more seating, because even then I would love to go over with my kids or my family and be able to just eat lunch there or something, you know.
Right.
To have more space to sit, for sure.
Okay.
Randy, if I can, I'm sorry, if I can speak on the I know we're past the subject, but the exercise equipment.
Yeah.
My name is Randy Haynes. I'm with the Factory Hill Neighborhood Group.
Okay.
And
welcome.
we just got, hi everybody. And we just got approved for a nice loan and a grant to do our park up at Factory Hill. And the idea of an exercise area was proposed. I'm a strong proponent of exercise equipment. I think it's great being outside, and it stands the test of the weather, these Boston weathers. And I proposed it to the group, and it was kind of like a 50-50 type of thing. And then upon further review of the costs and everything that's involved in it, it was found out that a lot of people, most people did not use the exercise equipment, and it was rather expensive, and it would have eaten up a lot of our finances. So we chose to go in a different direction. If folks here think that it might be a good idea and see that more people would use it, well, I mean, I just wanted to offer that as information.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's part of what will, and by the way, feel free to jump in about any of this at any point, going back, moving forward. That's why we're here. And then in terms of the next meeting, and we're going to keep talking about some other items too, But part of what we'll start doing is when we come to the second meeting, we come to show you guys, hearing all of these things that you like, things you want to change. We come back with several different design ideas and several concepts for what we could do in the park. And it's not a menu of you have to choose this one or this one. It's like a kit of parts to kind of give you different ideas in each of them to see, how things work together. But you're right, Randy, in terms of, picking and choosing different items to fit within that budget. That's part of what we can talk about as we move forward, as we look at what people like in each design and really looking at the cost of each of those. Sorry, I got us way off subject. Design team.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Good topics.
Oh, maybe I
And
didn't.
that was the last question.
Well, so is there anything that anybody that we haven't talked about yet that people feel like is worth us knowing in terms of how the park works now? Any issues that are there? Any things that you hope we do that we haven't talked about?
I wanted to talk about the path to get there, the walk, how you get there, the gates, the kind of the safety and the parking and the traffic and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Because I'm just wondering, like the stuff outside the park, like the crosswalks to get there and the parking and all of that, like is that something that can be part of this discussion, as like how people access the park and the safety of doing that? Or is that something that, I could say reach out to Ricardo Arroyo's office and try to like be in concert with this redesign? Because if the space is being redesigned, it would seem like looking at that piece and the crosswalks and the safety and the part, all of that would be really ideal. Because it's a huge issue. It's a huge concern. I'm fortunate to live on the same side of the street as the playground, so I don't have to cross the road, but that crosswalk is just terrible. It's unsafe. And, if we want to go to Lodge Hill or we want to go across the street, it's quite dangerous and people don't stop. And there's, it's supposed to be signage with a speed zone for the playground, and that's not obeyed. And it would be great if the park was redesigned, and with that, maybe there were crosswalks with like blinking lights, or just something to improve the crosswalks and do some traffic calming as part of a redesign of this park to make it more accessible to people, to encourage people to come, because there's probably people who don't want to come play at this playground because of the busy street and a feeling of it being quite unsafe, and your kids are so close to the street and people are disobeying the speed zone for the playground and going so fast, regardless if there are people parked and trying to get their kids in and out to the playground, or if there's nobody parked. It's a really busy area. So I just wanted to know how that could factor into rethinking this park space.
Absolutely. It's a great question. So full transparency, the street is outside of the scope of this project. It's all the city, but it's different property and different pots of money, which is frustrating. But one of the great things is that the transportation department and parks department do try to partner when we're doing projects. They have a program called Safe Routes to Parks. They have the same one, Safe Routes to Streets, or sorry, Safe Routes to Schools. And so we do try to partner on those. So whenever I do hear a concern from the community, one of the first things that I'll do tomorrow is reach out to them to say, do you guys have any projects going on right now that, in that area to start with? Because sometimes they just happen to serendipitously line up, and then to say, can we partner? Is there something that you guys could do on that same timeline? So what I can do, Stephanie, is ask those questions, and then at our second meeting, I can report back to you guys and let you know if we were able to do anything on our own. but hopefully it wouldn't get to needing to bring city councilors into it. But if it's a matter of additional funding or things like that, that's when it's a really great time to bring some city councilors in if we need to try to pull some funding, especially when it's a different department, when I don't have any say over that money.
Lauren, if I may,
Yeah, of course.
I know you want to keep it in-house, but I have to speak on, we had some of the same situations that Stephanie just spoke about with cars and traffic issues. And I have to say, and I definitely don't want to make it a political thing, but Representative Rob Consalvo,
Yep.
He lives right in the area. He comes
Oh, good
all
to
of our
know.
meetings. I'm sorry?
I said, good to know.
Yes, he is just, him and his office are amazing. Within 2 weeks, I'll say, we had traffic signs up, and he's just really, really amazing and helping out with Boston Parks and stuff like that. His office is great for that. So
That's great. I will loop him in too.
Consalvo a lot.
Yeah, I'll loop him in as well in the conversations.
Okay.
That's great.
I'm curious, other than the birthday parties, are there other gatherings that happen at the park? I mean, exercise group tried, that didn't work out. Anything like that?
As far as I remember, just the exercise gathering and the birthday parties.
Birthday parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any other groups that I've ever seen.
Okay.
Yeah, we thought about trying to start a kids, like a little like toddler soccer kind of thing. But again, the condition of the grass with the poop ended that really quick.
Okay. So the Boston Parks rules and regulations are that dogs are not allowed in playgrounds.
Right.
And
Right.
I think McGann it feels almost sort of like a hybrid where it's like it's a playground, but it also feels like a passive space. And I think if the people who use the playground are concerned about dog waste, I think that, you know, there's a conversation that we could have, which is, does the entire thing become a playground and we put up signs that there are no dogs allowed at all? In which case that people don't always follow those guidelines. But what do the people on this call feel? Does it feel like this should be a playground and a playground only? And even if there is lawn space, that's part of the playground? I'm curious.
I don't want to take the the rights from other individuals to bring their dogs and for them to have their quality times with their dog as well. But I guess the main factor is for them to pick up after their dog, and that's basically the main thing. I don't mind them having their dogs there. I'm a dog lover myself. I don't have any, but I don't mind it. But just, you know, if they could just clean up after their dogs, that'd be ideal, and we don't have to step on their waste at all.
Do you think that installation of a dog bag dispenser that was close to waste receptacles could possibly help with that?
I think so. The community is pretty good at following directions, although there's no
Okay.
there. There's no signs there either that says, you know, pick up after your dog.
Mhm.
But I believe that if they do see signs, given that kids play around there, then just pick up. And I think that if they do see a dispenser where they can just grab a bag and pick up, it will motivate them more. And a lot of people forget their bags at home, so I'm assuming that's what happens.
Right.
Well, but if this is an active thing where it's there at their reach, then maybe they'll grab it themselves and pick up. But
Yeah.
again, it's a question of whether they'll follow the rules or not too.
Right, absolutely. So,
I
oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say I agree with that, because I think it probably becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where they're just like, oh, well, kids don't really play back here. So if I bring my dog back here and we throw the ball and we run around, like I can just let them go because kids don't really come back here, but kids don't come back there because there's dog waste, you know? So I think that if the dispenser was there, it creates a perception of like, this is a play space. This is a people space where the people are using this space. So you're welcome to be here, but you need to clean up. Because I mean, my first inclination, because my kids use this park and so many kids use this park, I'd be like, yeah, this is a playground, but I also don't want to take away usable green space and park space away from people just because they don't have kids and aren't using it that way. So I don't want to take it away, but I just want it to be safe and healthy and, you know, enjoyable for everybody.
No, and that's why I wanted to ask, because not seeing it as often as you guys do, I don't see, you know, how many people do use it for dog recreation. And so it's good to hear you guys' thoughts on that. The other question that I have, and it's a question I always hate asking, but again, in full transparency, the maintenance department for Boston Parks is very understaffed and do a lot with what they have. Refilling dog bag dispensers is not something they have capacity for. However, if communities want dog bag dispensers, they are willing to purchase them and drop them and have people, you know, be in charge of refilling when they are empty.
Yeah.
Do you think the community or people in the community would be interested in potentially helping take that on in order to have a dog bag dispenser in the park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
I would speak up and say I would do it, because
Okay.
I literally live 10 feet away from the playground.
Okay.
You know,
great.
and if that's the kind of thing that I am willing to say, I would do that for the safety and health of everybody. That's wonderful to hear. And since, you know, you mentioned how understaffed they are, it's like they are wonderful. The park staff is wonderful. I mean, my friends joke that I'm like the 311 queen, because I'm there so much and I live nearby. I'm always just like, oh, the seesaw is broken. I put in, or like, we need more wood chips, or like, you know, because my daughter has fallen and scratched her face because of the concrete, and like the wood chips, you know, they sink and stuff. And like, you know, we put anything in 311 and somebody is there and they fix it. So I've written thank yous and comments so many times, but to officially say it, you know, in this call too, just they're wonderful. And I really appreciate the efforts that, you know, when myself and other community members have put things in that need addressing, they're so on top of it. And I really appreciate that. So I want to give them a yay, a toot their horn a little bit that I appreciate that they, you know, want to take care of the park and make it a good space for everybody. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that. And I'll definitely pass that along to them. I know it'll mean a lot to them, because I'm sure you can imagine people don't always take the time to say the good things. So yes, I appreciate that.
I want to make sure I say that, because that's, I know that this is a little park that's kind of out on the edge of the city, basically. And I appreciate that as well as it can be, it's taken care of, and they blow the leaves and, you know, clean it out and mow the lawn and address issues when we put them in 311. So they do a great job with what they have, for sure.
That's great. So one of the other things that I just wanted to throw out there is we're trying something new with this park as a little bit of a pilot. It was an idea that I had that I don't know whether it's a good idea or whether it works or not. But you guys may have seen today, we installed on one of the gates, there's a new project coming that we're going to have up throughout the design process. So every time there's a new meeting or a pop-up, like we're going to have on Monday, or a survey that we might put out about design ideas, just to try to make sure that we catch people who are coming in to use the park, to make sure that they know that something is happening, and not just one flyer up for an individual project or an individual meeting. So it's something that we're trying. So as we go through the process, if you guys, let me know, do you think it's a good idea? Do you think we should do something different? Would doing it differently make a difference? So it was just something I ideally would have loved to have had it up about 3 weeks ago, but it was just an idea that we came up with this week. So that's just something new for this project. So Lisa, Gigi, Patricia, do you guys have anything else? Any other questions for these guys?
I don't have any other questions, but I just want to thank everybody for your comments and your insights. This is all just great information for us as we get started in this. And yeah, we'd love to see anybody on site Monday. It's always great to be in the space and talk about it when we're all out there kind of living in the space. And tell your friends, tell your neighbors, get people to stop by. The more the merrier. We're in this kind of intake stage where there's no such thing as too much information and too much input. So we really want to hear from you guys, and it's great to be able to see people on site. So.
And the other thing I just want to throw out there before people hop off for the evening is anybody that would like to feel free to email me or to put your email in the chat. As the project continues, I like to try to make sure personally, even if the Parks Department sends something out, I like to personally follow up with people who were at the meetings, make sure they know about the next meetings. So if you'd like me to add you to my email list, which is just for this project, that I don't share with anybody else, please feel free to put that in the chat. And I'm happy to stay on if anybody else has any other thoughts, but just want to say thank you guys again for giving us your time this evening.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been great.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited because I, had been talking with some neighbors and some friends in the last few months and just saying, okay, summer's coming around. You're like, who do we email about, finding out where this park is on the list of parks getting redone, to move that along, because, it gets so much community use. It would be great. So when I saw the sign and I got as an abutter, I got the flyer in my, on my front step, I was really, really excited. So I'm so excited for this to happen. Selfishly for my own kids who love the playground, but then for my neighbors as well. Because it has so much potential. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're excited as a design team thinking about it. And this is really the fun stage for us, kind of getting to know everybody and really understanding what it is you need and want in that space and what's going to be successful. So this is the fun part. But it's all fun. It's a park. I mean,
Yeah,
it's great.
And we'll stop by on Monday because my 4-year-old has some thoughts that she wanted to share.
Oh, good.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Definitely. Well, I was going to say, and we should emphasize, bring the kids, because this is about them, right, and their use. So they're more than welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you guys again, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bye.
So
All right.
that was good in the end. Not a ton of people.
Yeah.
We got a lot of input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it being such a small park, it's definitely obvious that those folks really use the park and know it well,
Right.
as opposed to like sometimes we get people who are like, I've been by there once and I just thought I would, share my opinions about everything.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, as soon as I get
That's awesome.
the chat downloads, I'll send those off to you guys as well.
Okay.
If we could, and can't remember whether you guys had sent it yet, or sorry, my neighbor kids, I don't know if you can hear them. They're being very loud. I don't know what they're doing out there. but they're having fun. That's what they're doing. But so, like I'm on the 3rd floor and I can like hear them and they're having but I don't remember whether I got the final updated presentation or not as a PDF after we had made a couple of tweaks. So if I could grab that final one from you, because we'll post that as well as the video from the meeting. Actually, I need to